Full extension drawer slides. How do they work? How do you install them? And how do you make it where your drawers operate very smoothly and easy without going through a huge complicated process? Well, today, that's what I'm going to show you. A very simple method to be able to install full extension drawer slides and build the drawer to match to be able to make a very smooth operation. And it's not complicated. I started by cutting 2 pieces of wood the length of the inside of the cabinet, and then I put a center line right down the center of the material. That way I can align the drawer slide where it's perfectly in the center of this material. You also want to bring the drawer slide right up to the front edge. Now keep in mind, all drawer slides are not made the same, so you may need to be able to adjust this backwards or forward slightly to make the final adjustment. That's why I'm going to use this little oval hole to be able to put in those 2 screws that will be able to hold the drawer slide at this point. That way it'll allow me to make some small adjustments necessary to be able to have that end result where it's completely flush with the front smooth surface of the cabinet itself. Looking at the close-up view of that center line right in that oval hole shows you exactly how I make that alignment. Then I use the awl to put a little guide hole into the material, and then I can put the screw in that. That way this drawer slide will not move at all and it'll be perfectly aligned. And just so I don't lose any parts, I'll put the other half of the drawer slide back in place, and I'll move on now to the second one and repeat the exact same process. If this is the first time that you're using the full extension slides, you need to know how to release this portion of the slide. And this is the little black lever that all you need to do is just pull it down, and then that will slip out. And then repeat the process to be able to follow your guidelines to be able to put in the drawer slide itself. This next step is critical. You want to cut a piece of wood now the same exact length as this drawer opening itself. This piece of wood, of course, will fit on the back side of the 2 drawer slides, and this will make it where the drawer slides are perfectly parallel to each other. And that is critical to be able to make sure that you have smooth sliding drawers when using these full extension drawer slides. Now I'll just put some glue on each side of this, and I'll nail in this piece of wood. And of course I'll glue and nail the other side as well. Now this will complete this component because this will now go into the cabinet as a complete unit. So how do I put this completed component into the cabinet itself? Well, I'm going to need some reference lines. In this case, I decided to use the center line of the opening of this drawer as my guide. And I have to be able to put a nice level line on the back of the cabinet as well. So what better way to do that than to use a level? Okay, there was no way to show that in the camera where I'm actually marking the back of that cabinet, but I can show you this view. So here's a look at that mark that I made right there, and that is exactly level to the center of that opening. Now my wood is actually 3 inches, so I need to measure down 1.5 inches and be able to put a line right there. And that's going to be my reference line to install this component. Now this box is actually square with no taper on it, so I can use a square to be able to mark this straight line, and that will ensure that it's completely level. Now it's time to install this component with the 2 drawer slides on it. So I'll just take it and be able to slide it into this opening. So you can see this line. All I need to do is just line that up now, where it's right on that, and that will be level and it'll be straight all the way across. Then I'll do the same thing up front. This is the center line of the opening, and this is the center line of the drawer slide itself. All I need to do is just match these 2 up, and of course I have it marked on both sides the same way. So with the back in position, I know that that's going to be straight, and I know it's going to be level just by having all of these points lined up. By sliding in this drawer slide and making sure that it's exactly flush to this outer edge, that's going to ensure that it's completely parallel. And then I'll just nail it in place. And of course, I'll repeat this on the other side. So if we look at this now, we're right on this line. So that takes care of this axis going up and down. We need to make sure that this distance and this distance is the same. And this, if I measure it, is 27 millimeters. So if you look real close, you can just barely see the line. So that gives me the exact point that I need to have it there. Then if I measured over here, this was 26 millimeters, and on this side was 27 millimeters, and that's actually real close. I am not going to try to get that any closer. I think it would just end up being worse. So that's real good. So 2 screws will go into here, and that will secure it. Okay, I have my location for my screws. I'm going to take the awl, we'll put it right there. Now this is 1-inch material. This is 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch, and I'm using a 3/4 inch screw. So off camera, I went ahead and installed those 2 screws, and that will secure those back. Now I'll just be able to set this up, and this portion is completed. This door opening is actually 8 inches, so this should be 7 inches. And it is exactly 7 inches. So what I need to do now is go ahead and make the box for my drawer, or I should say my drawer box, to fit into this area. And as far as the depth, I can make it to 14 inches by the 7 inches. Now the drawer size itself needs to be the 5.5 inches by the 14. Well, this piece of scrap material is exactly 14 inches, so that's going to work out well. So I have the table saw set up to cut my 2 sides at the 5.5. I'll do the same thing with the front. The front and back I can get out of this. So here's the making of the box. I have the front and back, and I have my 2 sides. Now these sides are already the 14 inches. I need to cut this and this one to the 7 inches, because that is the opening that I have. So I'll take these 2 pieces. We'll cut these 7 inches long. Okay, I measured this over to my 7 inches, and I have it marked right there. Then I'm going to take it over here, and I'm going to line it up on my saw blade. Now, if you remember, I have this set where this line right here is the edge of that blade. So all I need to be able to do is line this up to that point right there. Then I'm going to slide this over, lock it down, and now I'll be able to cut both pieces exactly the same. And it's very important to be able to have these 2 pieces exactly the same, and they must be the 7 inches. And that is the width of the opening between the 2 drawer slides. If this is cut too short, then it's going to be loose and it's not going to operate properly. If these 2 pieces of wood are cut larger than the 7 inches that I need, then it's going to be too tight and the drawer will not function well at all. So that gives me now the front and back of my drawers. One way would be simply do a butt joint like this, and that would actually work. And you would do that the same on all 4 of the sides. But this does not give a lot of strength. Now the reason I cut this one right at 7 inches, that gives me that proper spacing to work within the drawer slides. That to me is the easiest way to be able to maintain the correct distance. So if I take this piece and put a rabbet joint in here, then that's going to give me a larger gluing surface, and it's going to be able to help keep this drawer straight and square. To set up this rabbet joint is actually very easy. I'm going to take a piece of the material, and we're just going to lower the saw blade down to about halfway, or maybe just slightly more than the halfway point. And that's going to give me the depth. As far as the thickness, it needs to be right at the outside of this saw blade. That looks like the perfect spot. Now this gives me the max width all the way here, which is the thickness of my plywood. So that is exactly perfect. The next step in this process is just to chip away this excess material. Easiest way to be able to do that is using the Midas gauge. And with the Midas gauge in place, I can take this piece and set it right here and then run it through and then just move it back until I reach this outer edge. And that will take care of being able to cut this material here away. You might ask why I didn't just set up a dado set and cut it that way. Well, quite frankly, because I'm only making one drawer, it would actually take longer to be able to set up the dado blade, set up an auxiliary fence, to be able to allow this to be cut correctly, than it would be just to do this process. So for me, making just one drawer, this actually was a lot quicker and saved the time. And now let's test that. And if you look at that, that fits in there perfect. This is flush on the outside, a nice tight joint. And this still maintains that 7 inches that we need. So let me go ahead now and cut the other 3. So this is how this will join together now. This will be able to slide right into that rabbet joint. It's perfectly flush on the outside, and it gives a lot of gluing surface there. That way, you're going to be able to maintain that 7 inches that I need between those drawer slides for this drawer to be able to fit in perfectly. Time to add some glue and nail this drawer together. The other advantage of using this rabbet joint is that it keeps the whole entire drawer nice and square. In addition to that, it's a very simple joint to be able to make and with lots of benefits. And in keeping with the simplicity of the design, it's time to cut the bottom. The measurement for this, of course, is going to be the 7 inches wide by the 14 inches long. We got this lined up right here on the edge, and I nailed that in. Then I flipped it around and lined up the opposite and made sure it was in and nailed it. Didn't catch that on the camera, but then once these 2 corners were square, then I just nailed around the rest of it, and that finishes the drawer. So instead of having this sharp square edge all the way around, I'm going to take it over to the router and just round this over. I'm using a 1/4 inch round over bit to be able to make this cut, and I think this will be a lot nicer to have that smooth round over on the top of this drawer versus that sharp edge of just a square piece of the plywood. This looks and feels so much nicer than just having that straight square edge, and it only takes a couple minutes to do. It's now time to add the drawer slides to the side of the box. I'm going to measure up 3 inches from the bottom and put a little mark. That's going to be the center line where I want to be able to put this drawer slide. And I'll just use a straight edge to mark that. And just as before, I'm using this center line to be able to align the drawer slides. I'll pull out the drawer slide, pull this lever down right there, and it'll slip out. Put that down right here. This is going to be the front, so I'm going to have this all the way to the front edge. I'll line up the holes right here. Move this over till you get the center line right there. And I'll put in the second screw. Then when I flip this over, I like to put a couple of scrap pieces of wood just to make it where it sits better. That way it's good and solid. Now we have those on, and we'll go put it into the opening. And we'll just slip this in. And there we go. Perfect. All that's left now is to make the drawer front. Now I cut the drawer front about 3/16 of an inch shorter to be able to have a little bit of a reveal. Now also mark this center point, and that's going to be the hole for the knob. I'm also going to use this to be able to get the alignment to be able to put this drawer face onto the drawer itself. To do that, I'm just going to line it up. I'm going to put a little shim right there at the bottom. Make sure that the spacing is exactly the same on all four sides. And then I'll just be able to drill that hole right there in the center. And that will give the perfect alignment to be able to attach this drawer face to the drawer. And I now have a drawer to this end table that is absolutely perfect. And I love the flush finish on this, where it goes in flush. I really like that. So this turned out really good. Now, if you enjoyed this video today, I hope that you'll take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel right down there and hit that bell notification. And by the way, if you want to see this video right over here on exactly how to install a power strip that won't fall off and it'll work the way it's supposed to, check out this video. I think it'll help you a lot. So for now, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye, everyone.